Welcome back to another video, and welcome if you're new. So today we are finally going to be ranking what are the best SMGs to use in Cold War after the Season 2 Reloaded update. It's already been about a week now, and I've had a chance to go ahead and test out pretty much all of the SMGs. There have been some pretty significant nerfs and buffs that have happened that potentially shifted the meta as far as SMGs go. There were a lot of different ways that I could have went about this, and you know, there's always going to be someone out there who has a certain opinion about something, like, no, this is better than that, that's better than that. We're gonna do this tier maker here and just simplify it here a little bit. This may be a surprise to you, but the SMGs are pretty balanced in this game. Not one SMG just completely outshines like the rest. So there's definitely SMGs in this game that are great at doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the best class setups for each SMG that I list over here. So if you guys do enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like. I'd really appreciate it. And make sure to subscribe if you're brand new around here to make your way back to more Call of Duty content. So first, let's go over the categories. So meta all-purpose. So like I was saying, there isn't really one SMG that just completely blows out the rest out of the water. However, there are a couple SMGs that are just great for all types of scenarios. We're also taking account to the practicality of the weapon. Is it user friendly? You know, is the mobility great? So these are things that we're also looking for, that we're taking into account when we're ranking our weapons. You know, we're not just purely going based off of time to kill. So next we have meta, which is so these are SMGs that are obviously they fry in game, but in certain situations, they're not really gonna do you too well. The next category we have here, viable. So these are weapons that are pretty good, but you know, they're not outstanding at all. They don't blow you out of the water. Viable situational. This means that, you know, this gun is only good for certain situations. Let's say maybe you can only really take advantage of it at close range, then that is the only gun that you should be using if you're going to be playing in certain scenarios. Average, not good nor bad. You know, it's okay. It's kind of like a novelty weapon at that point. You kind of just want to use it if you're grinding for a camo or something like that. But other than that, there's no real reason why you should be using it, especially if you're playing in really sweaty lobbies. You're not going to stand a chance at all against what the meta is going to be. All right, so anyways, no particular order here. Let's just grab it here. So the AK-74U, definitely going to put it at meta all-purpose. Now, I know there's a nerf to the AK-74U. They messed around with the horizontal recoil. They also reduced its bullet velocity. So, you know, even though the AK-74U doesn't have very impressive time to kills outside of that 7-meter range, it's the movement and the mobility is what makes it absolutely insane. And also the recoil control is pretty dang good on the 74U. It's not that hard to control that recoil. All right, so moving along here, we have the Bullfrog. So this one, I had a bit of trouble, you know, trying to decide which category it goes into, but I definitely do think it also belongs in the meta all-purpose category. Now, the reason why I put it in here is, like I said, we're also accounting for just the overall user friendliness of it. Is it reliable? So let's talk about the Bullfrog. The Bullfrog has a pretty good TTK up to 19 meters. The range is exceptionally well, and it kills your opponents exceptionally fast. Also, don't forget the fact that it has 50 rounds per magazine. That is absolutely insane, and it also makes it a viable weapon to take on multiple opponents at a time. You don't even need to have all 8 attachments on the Bullfrog. Just put on 5 viable attachments, and the Bullfrog is going to perform exceptionally well. That's why I really like the Bullfrog. You will definitely melt a lot of opponents, especially in that mid-range. But wait, there's more. The recoil control on the Bullfrog is absolutely amazing. Very easy to control. All right, so next, let's move on to the next weapon here. We've got the KSP. So I'm going to put the KSP at meta under kind of, because like I was stating, it's not really a weapon that is an all-purpose type of weapon. Yes, it absolutely fries, but there is a caveat to it. You have to have some sort of skill to be able to use the KSP to its potential. You have to be mindful, it's a burst weapon. You know, not everybody is comfortable using burst weapons. And also what happens in very close quarter combat situations, let's say you're going up against somebody with a AK-74U who comes around the corner out of nowhere. He's literally 5 meters in front of you. If you're using a burst weapon in that situation, you better hope that you don't miss a shot. It can be very unforgiving and the AK-74U is going to melt you regardless, even if it has a slower time to kill than the KSP. So the KSP, you have to be really mindful of how you use it. You have to pre-aim very often around corners. You have to always pretty much assume there is going to be a gunfight. Have you ever heard of the term spray and pray, where you just don't expect someone to be there but you sprayed anyway? Well, with the KSP, spraying and praying is kind of hard to do when you have to keep continuously firing your trigger and hoping that one of your shots lands. So, you know, that's why I put the KSP at meta, kind of. It's more for the, you know, upper skill tier of players. All right, next we have the LC10. This one is just a no-brainer here. Even if it did receive a pretty significant nerf to its range, I still think that LC10 deserves to be a meta all-purpose weapon. Let's not talk about the exceptional time to kill up to mid-range, and then even beyond that, it is going to take over the long-range game. You know, nothing competes with the LC10 at long range. The recoil is incredibly easy to control. And also, you don't need to use all 8 attachments. Remember, we're trying to factor in everything here, from user-friendliness to reliability to convenience. You know, we're factoring everything here. That's what makes a weapon meta. And also, if you haven't noticed, even the AK-74U is one of those guns that you don't need all 8 attachments on. Therefore, it becomes even more viable because you're able to put on 6 perks on all 3 of these weapons. You don't need all 8 attachments for it to be viable. Some weapons, you know, they suffer without all 8 attachments. All right, MAC-10. MAC-10, I'm definitely putting this at viable situational. You know, I know this is shocking because the MAC-10, you know, there's so much hype around it, but let's be real here. The MAC-10 recoil control is absolutely atrocious. You know, anything past 15 meters doesn't really make it convenient to use in any kind of situation. If somebody is going to confront me with a Bullfrog at, you know, 25 meters, Bullfrog is definitely going to win. First of all, Bullfrog holds more ammo, and second of all, it has less recoil, you know, resulting in a much more accurate shot for that person using the Bullfrog. Whereas the MAC-10, you also do have to keep in mind that the recoil control is something that you have to be mainly conscious of, and on top of that, you're gonna have to be conscious of keeping your gunfights as close as possible. You know, if you're gonna engage in a long-range combat with the MAC-10, I'm gonna pray for you, man, because it's definitely one of those things where when you fire your weapon at long range, you're just hoping that you win that gunfight. Now, another thing that I do have to say about the MAC-10 that makes it viable, but only in certain situations, is that you kind of do need all 8 attachments for it to be viable. Now, the reason why is because that atrocious iron sights on the MAC-10, if you're not running a stock on the MAC-10, then you're gonna have a hard time visually seeing everything. You know, like I was saying, this goes back to user friendliness. You know, the MAC-10, it's just not, it doesn't make sense. Me personally, it's not really that usable unless you put on a stock and then you have to put on all these other attachments like an extended mag, because it's gonna run out of ammo really quickly. So it's a viable gun, but you know, only if you know that you're going to be playing up close and personal. Next, we have the Milano. So this one, definitely meta in my opinion. The Milano is better than ever. If you guys haven't seen my previous video on the Milano, make sure to check that video out. It's literally the video right before this, but I basically break down what makes it meta good. Now, it's obviously not meta all purpose. It's not meta like God tier, but it is definitely meta good. It's definitely worth using. Now, the reason why it's great is that range is extended out and it's fairly competitive versus the likes of the Bullfrog and even the KSP at mid-range, especially when you put the task force barrel on it. The extending that range and that time to kill of 313 milliseconds is definitely worth using, especially against other guns in the game that have shorter ranges, like the AK-74U, for example. Now, the only issue that I see with the Milano is that it doesn't have great mobility. When you're trying to finesse an opponent, you know, using mobility, it's not going to be there for you. Yeah, they did increase the mobility and all that stuff on the Milano, but in my opinion, it's still not as good as the 74U. If you're, you know, you're trying to slide cancel, you know, be all try hard and sweaty. Milano is good, but not good enough to be all purpose. You know, it becomes a pea shooter at a certain range because that fire rate is pretty slow. So, you know, that's where I would rank it right. Last but not least, we have the MP5. So, boop, I'm just gonna put it right there, man. Honestly, MP5 is not good. It's not bad. It's pretty average in my opinion. Time to kill, you know, there's better choices out there, especially for the ranges that the MP5 is at. You know, the MP5 is not that great in my opinion. I mean, leave a comment down below if you think the MP5 should have been ranked a little bit higher here. Now, there is one little spot here that I left open. I thought I was going to be putting something there at Viable, but you know, obviously it didn't turn out that way. That's what the tier maker is all about, right? All right, so next I just want to go over really quickly all the recoil patterns for all SMGs in the game. And we're not going to count the KSP. We already know at this point the KSP is pretty much godly. It's a burst weapon, so the recoil control is just absolutely insanely accurate. Now here we have all our recoil patterns for all the SMGs. This is without attachments on it. So the Milano has some pretty good recoil control, as it has the shortest vertical recoil control. Although there is some horizontal recoil there, it's definitely mitigated by putting on the SOCOM and the field agent grip. As you can see, it's a very, very tiny dot. Actually, the best bullet pattern that we see here after we combine all the best attachments to control recoil versus all the other SMGs in the game. So if you're looking for a very user-friendly weapon and something that is easy to control, Milano is going to be your choice. And also, it's not even that bad of a weapon to use. It's a very decent mid-range option. And here is the Bullfrog. So keep in mind, this is with 50 rounds. This is the standard magazine size. So obviously, the vertical recoil is going to look a lot more inflated than it actually needs to be, because in reality, you're not going to unleash 50 rounds into an opponent, right? But other than that, it's mostly a vertical type of recoil, and it goes up and to the left. There is some horizontal, but not too much horizontal. So here's what it looks like when we combine the 𝗧𝗠𝗠𝗧𝗪 compensator and the 𝗧𝗧𝗠𝗧𝗪 grip, which are the two best attachments to give you the most minimal amount of recoil. Like I stated, it's going to be a very inflated, over-exaggerated turnout here because this is 50 rounds. So obviously, we're just not really going to pay too much attention to that. But for the most part, Bullfrog is very, very easy to control as well. Actually, now that I think about it, mostly all the SMGs in the game are pretty easy to control, except for the MAC-10. The MAC-10 is a different story. LC-10 is definitely a very easy gun to control. I mean, I think out of all these bullet patterns here, the LC-10 has the cleanest stock pattern as far as recoil control goes. It's literally only a vertical recoil control, not too much horizontal going on here, because most of the bullet patterns are very clustered together, which is a good sign. It's going to be an accurate turnout. So the best way to control it is to add SOCOM plus field agent grip. Now for the MP5 is, you know, not too bad either. You know, it looks terrible here, but in reality, it's not really that bad. Yeah, there is a lot of separation here between the bullet pattern, but you know, this is towards the end of your magazine, keep in mind. So what we're really focused on here is the very beginning. There is a bit of separation here between the bullets, which is going to equate to some horizontal recoil control. But the best way to control the recoil is SOCOM plus the field agent grip, which actually isn't too bad of a turnout right there. Pretty surprising results when you add these two attachments together. All right, so for the AK-74U, so the 74U, they did some tweaks after the 1.14 update. They increased that horizontal recoil control. Apparently, according to the patch notes, they said that, you know, they're going to make it a little bit harder for your accuracy for prolonged firing. So the biggest difference here is that there is a lot more noticeable horizontal recoil control. As you can see, it goes here and then it curves and then boom, straight line into the corner right there. So this still isn't bad overall. I mean, if you've used the AK-74U since the update, you already know that it's still a pretty easy gun to control, especially if you add the KGB eliminator plus the 𝗧𝗠𝗠𝗧𝗪 grip. Last but not least, we have the MAC-10. There isn't much to say here about the MAC-10. It has the worst vertical recoil control out of all the SMGs. You know, not to say that it's impossible to control the recoil. It's just that when you compare it to the rest of the guns here, the MAC-10 is definitely in a league of its own as far as recoil control goes. But if you want to control it as much as possible, SOCOM plus the SFOD speed grip. And the speed grip, by the way, is the new meta for the MAC-10. If you didn't know, they added vertical recoil control aside from the horizontal and that sprinting move speed boost that you do get. So using the MAC-10 is definitely a lot more fun now that they added that little buff to the SFOD speed grip. But like I said, MAC-10, you're still kind of limited to a certain play style, and if you're going to play within maybe 15 meters at most and below that, the MAC-10 is definitely viable and fun to use. All right, so starting off with the KSP, this is my build here. It is a 5 attachment setup. 8 attachments is not necessary at all, so I'm going to try to breeze through these class setups as quickly as possible so you guys don't get too bored with every single description. But if I do have something to explain, I will make sure to make it known. Alright, so for the KSP muzzle, we're going to be using the agency suppressor. Now, I know this is very, very surprising. Like I said, KSP is a very accurate gun, and you don't need any attachments that do control that recoil. So you can use the agency suppressor on it. It'll keep you as stealthy as possible, and at the same time it has a little bit of vertical recoil control. That's a plus to it, and it does reduce your effective damage range by 25%. But just keep watching. You might lose a gunfight, or more opponents are going to come through and attack you if they see you pinging on the minimap. So that's why we put on the agency suppressor, so we can remain as stealthy as possible. It is just best used, especially if you're going to try to take advantage of that very, very insanely quick time to kill up close. Agency suppressor being as stealthy as possible just makes a lot of sense in this situation. Rather than just making a lot of noise, letting opponents know exactly where you are, you're going to get bum rushed, you won't have enough time to react, and you might miss your shots, and it's going to be very unforgiving, like I stated. Now for barrel, we're going to be using the task force barrel to be able to mitigate the negative that we get with that effective damage range on the agency suppressor. This is going to extend our range out to 19 meters. Regardless, even if we have the agency suppressor, this is still a pretty impressive damage range, and this is even the range that you should be using the KSP at most anyway, because anything beyond that, you're going to have a hard time winning a gunfight. Underbarrel is going to be the SFOD speed grip. Again, we don't need too much recoil control on this gun. However, I am using the speed grip because it gives us horizontal recoil control, which is an added bonus, but mainly using it for the sprinting move speed. You know, this is great if you're trying to rush around the map, trying to be stealthy, trying to flank. This helps you get to the opponents a lot faster, and even in some situations, get away from situations if you wanted to. Magazine, we don't need a magazine on here. It's the KSP. It's got burst rounds, so you're not really going to run out of ammo fairly quickly. You can really one burst or two burst two opponents at a time. That's how extremely powerful the KSP is. Handle is going to be the serpent wrap, so we can get a little bit more ADS speed. Now, the reason why we're not using airborne elastic wrap is because it absolutely butchers our sprint to fire time more than the serpent wrap does. So obviously you do want to mitigate that as much as possible, especially if you're going to be playing up close and personal and in close range. You definitely do not want to hinder your sprint to fire speed with this gun. Stock is going to be the no stock attachment. Once again, we're prioritizing that sprint to fire time, and the hip fire accuracy consequences are not that bad compared to the Raider stock, so that's why we're going with the no stock attachment here for the KSP. Here's the rest of my class setup as far as perks go. All right, moving on to the AK-74U. So again, this is another 5 attachment setup. If you want to use an 8 attachment setup, you can go ahead and do so, but at least for my lobbies, I need all my perks. And then there's going to be some instances where, you know what, I'm just going to take that risk and just do an 8 attachment setup. But for the most part, I'm a lot more successful with 6 perk setup here. I am using the KGB Eliminator. Gives us our best chances at controlling that recoil. Barrel is going to be the task force barrel. Now keep in mind, I am not using the AK-74U at extremely long ranges. The 74U by nature has very short ranges already, and even with the task force barrel, it extends our first damage range drop off to 11 meters. So you have to go in with the mindset that you're going to try to take advantage of the 74U's TTK by trying to play as close and personal as possible. That's not to say that it cannot compete at long ranges because it has a really good recoil control, but if you want to, you know, be technical with it, then use the gun as it's intended to be used. Underbarrel is going to be the Spetsnaz grip. Magazine is going to be the Groove Mag clamp. We want to reload as fast as we possibly can. If we're going to be playing up close and personal, there's no need to running an extended mag because that is going to hinder our aim down sight time. Then we're going to try to mitigate that negative by adding the Serpent wrap to give us more aim down sight time with minimal cons to our sprint to fire time as seen on the Guru Elastic wrap. But you know, if you don't care about all that, Guru Elastic wrap is a solid secondary choice. No, just by whatever chance, if you're going to run an 8 attachment setup, I definitely recommend using the no stock attachment. And then for body, you can use KGB target designator. Optic, I do not recommend an optic at all in the 74U. All right, moving on to the MAC-10. So the MAC-10, in my opinion, is a gun where you have to pick your poison. Like I was saying earlier, it's not really the most viable gun as far as, you know, an all-around situational type of weapon, because the iron sights are what absolutely kills it for me. If it had better iron sights, it would be a lot more flexible gun to use. But anyways, for the muzzle, we're using the 𝗧𝗘𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗪. Barrel is going to be the reinforced heavy. Now, the reason why we're not using Task Force on this is because Task Force absolutely obliterates the recoil control. Obviously, it's not convenient in certain situations, so you do want to put on the barrel that gives you the second best hit detection as far as bullet velocity goes, and that would be the reinforced heavy, and it doesn't reduce your recoil control whatsoever. Body is going to be the soft target designator. Underbarrel is going to be the SFOD speed grip. This is a really great addition. I'm not really sure why they chose the MAC-10 specifically to have this vertical recoil control added to it, but nonetheless, I'm not complaining. We can move faster and also control the gun a lot better with the SFOD speed grip. Definitely better than the field agent grip in my opinion. Magazine is going to be the Salvo 53 round fast mag. Absolutely no way can we run the MAC-10 and expect to get multiple kills at a time without using the 53 round fast mag. This is an absolute must. This is why it cripples the gun, and why I didn't rank it too high on that tier list is because, you know, if you're using something else, you're just kind of like leaving yourself open for a weakness, you know, and you have to have as much ammo as possible in the MAC-10. How fast that rate of fire is, you're going to be going through ammo like crazy. And the fact that you have to play up close and personal, it means that your chances of getting into engagements with multiple enemies at a time are going to be a lot higher. That's why 53 round fast mags is definitely advised, even though it does reduce your aim down sight time by quite a bit. With that said, we are going to have to use the airborne elastic wrap to go ahead and mitigate that aim down sight time negative. And then for the stock, we are running with the no stock. You could either go with the no stock or the Raider stock. It's all personal preference. You know, at this point, even though there are some major cons to using the Raider stock, I mean, we've already added some cons as is. Like I said, you got to pick your poison. Raider stock and no stock offer one of the best iron sights possible on the gun. It is a huge difference. It allows you to see much more clearer when you're moving around the map and engaging in gunfights. Next, we have the Bullfrog, one of my absolute favorite meta weapons in the game right now. Again, you don't need all 8 attachments on it. This is a 5 attachment setup, and it is still as viable as ever. Muzzle is going to be the KGB Eliminator. Barrel is going to be that Task Force barrel. Now, the thing about the Task Force barrel is that, yes, I understand it really reduces your recoil control, but not on the Bullfrog. Bullfrog gets extended out to 28 meters with this barrel, which is absolutely insane. Remember that 320 millisecond time to kill? That puts it at one of the fastest time to kills for mid-range SMGs, which is absolutely amazing. Underbarrel is going to be the 𝗧𝗘𝗥𝗔𝗠𝗏 grip. We don't need a magazine, man. We've already got 50 rounds per mag, and that's definitely sufficient enough. Why should we hurt our ADS speed? Let's turn this thing into a cracked out weapon by not putting a mag on it at all. But if you so choose to, then, you know, you could go with a 65 round mag, as long as, you know, it's all your personal preference. Do you want it to be extremely fast ADS, or do you want to have a lot of ammo? You know, the choice is up to you. There's a lot of flexibility here. Why the Bullfrog is definitely rated as one of the best SMGs in the game, but as it stands, you don't really need an extended mag. 50 rounds is enough. Handle is going to be the GRU elastic wrap, or you can go with the serpent wrap. It just kind of depends. GRU elastic wrap, this thing makes your ADS super quick at 192 milliseconds. Serpent wrap is at 206 milliseconds, slightly slower, but, you know, still pretty good. But my personal choice, if you want to make this into a cracked machine, definitely go with the GRU elastic wrap. We're going to be running with the KGB skeletal stock, or you can go with the no stock. It just kind of depends. Some people have actually a harder time controlling that recoil, or just having a perfect aim on your opponent when you're trying to track him when they're moving, because the aim walking movement speed is just a little bit too much for some people. So if you are one of those people, then I would definitely advise just using the no stock attachment. Your aim is going to be a little bit more stiff if you go this route, but however, if you put on the skeletal stock, you'll have a lot more room for movement as far as mobility goes with the KGB skeletal stock. Next, we have the LC-10, another top tier meta weapon here. Only 5 attachments needed. You know, these are things that I factor into the viability of the gun. Like, you know, is it a very attachment intensive type of weapon? Can it handle just having only 5 attachments and still be viable? Is the mobility still good, etc, etc? Anyways, muzzle, we're going to be using the 𝗧𝗘𝗥𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗪. Barrel is going to be the Task Force barrel. This extends our range out to 19 meters. Under barrel is going to be the SFOD speed grip. Could use field agent grip, but you know what? It's the LC10. It's got one of the best recoil controls in the game. I'd rather have more sprinting move speed versus recoil control. And then magazine is going to be the Vandal speed loader, so we can reload quickly without hindering our ADS time. Handle is going to be the Serpent Wrap once again. Next, we have the Milano. So I'm going to offer two alternate choices here because the Milano is a really good weapon. It's meta good, but you know, not quite. Mainly because it does require still a little bit more maintenance as far as some attachments go. So for muzzle, we're using the SOCOM Eliminator. Barrel is going to be the Task Force barrel. And again, it does not reduce your recoil whatsoever because on the Milano, the recoil control is fairly easy to control. And that first damage range is at 22 meters, which is absolutely insane. If I'm not correct, I think that's one of the biggest increases for the SMGs, I think aside from the Bullfrog, so that's pretty dang good. Body's going to be the Soft Target Designator, Underbarrel is going to be the Field Agent Grip, Magazine is going to be the Vandal Speed Loader, Handle is going to be the Serpent Grip, and Stock is going to be the Marathon Stock. Now, if you just want to go with a 5 attachment setup, except for you just don't have any stock, you don't have a body, or you don't have an optic. Alright, last but not least, we have the MP5. One of my least favorite guns in the game, honestly, because I feel like it's very limited in what it can do, and I don't know, you just need certain attachments to make it viable. Muzzle is going to be the SOCOM Eliminator, barrel is going to be the Reinforced Heavy, underbarrel is going to be the Field Agent Grip, magazine is going to be the SAS Mag Clamp, and handle is going to be the Airborne Elastic Wrap. So, you know, ideally, I would like to put on a salvo 40 round fast mag, but, you know, it's going to reduce that aim down sight time quite a bit, and 40 rounds is still not enough, and it's not worth it in my opinion. You're going to be running out of ammo fairly quickly, especially with that fire rate. It's extremely fast at 857, so you know, you might as well go for something that's not going to hinder your performance as far as ADS goes. So that's why I just went with the mag clamp. I'd rather just reload super quick, get ready for the next gunfight, versus just having 40 rounds. You know, it's literally just 10 extra rounds at the cost of negative 25% aim down sight time, whereas this one is only -6. So, you know, the MP5 is okay at best. You know, I'm not really a big fan of the MP5. It's just okay. If you guys did enjoy, you learned something, make sure to leave a like. I'd really appreciate it, and make sure to subscribe if you're brand new around here to make your way back to more Call of Duty content. Yo, if you guys are always on your computer all day, or you like to game for long sessions, definitely check out GamerAdvantage.com for these blue light blocking glasses. Quite literally the best blue light glasses that you can ever find on the market. Make sure to check out GamerAdvantage.com and just learn more about it, man. There's so many benefits to keeping your eyes nice and healthy. You won't feel that strain at the end of the day, and you'll go to sleep like a baby at the end of the day, and that's the best part. You won't feel tired at all. Definitely check out GamerAdvantage.com. Use code Turbo at checkout.